Welcome to episode 11 of Reality Podcast. I am your host, Ricky Valero. On today's episode, we are going to be recapping season 2, episode 2 of two Vanderpump shows. The first one being Vanderpump Rules, the second one being Vanderpump Villa. As always, I am joined by my partner here in this rewatching of the Vanderpump world, Mr. Matthew Fox. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing good. You know, I had to leave the Sir Lounge behind and come to you from the top of the turret because there's just a lot to see at the villa.
There really is a lot to see at the villa. I like the new landscape. I'm a big fan of it. We got two very interesting episodes that we're gonna dive right into. Before we do, folks, you know the drill here. What we're gonna do is we're gonna recap what happened in Vanderpump Rules season 2, episode 2, followed by Vanderpump Villa season 2, episode 2, and maybe at the end of the episode, chat a little bit about some of the stuff that we also might have been watching in the world of reality TV. But without further ado, let's dive into the world of Vanderpump Rules Season 2, Episode 2. Look at that little cool thing I did right there. All right. That being said, folks, all right, let's see here. Vanderpump Rules Season 2, Episode 2, right? Episode 2. Titled Brand It. Aptly titled because Jack gets a tattoo of Stassi's name to prove his love, but before the ink is dry, a romantic dinner turns into a shouting match with Stassi, revealing there's another guy in her life. Later, Stassi attacks Sheena for turning Lisa against her. Tom attempts to put together a piece of his broken relationship with Kristen, but finds the instructions hard to follow, which honestly is quietly apt a hilarious final sentence of the synopsis. And then last but not least, the IMDb score for this episode was not great. It is a mere 7.3. Initial thoughts on how the synopsis matches with said stories that unfold in episode, because it's very hit and miss sometimes.
I mean, it's fairly accurate. I don't think they've gotten to a shouting match at dinner. They sort of make it seem like they argued in the car, but
Yeah, I digress.
Dinner was more sad.
It was definitely something.
I'm just, I wish they didn't put the previews for the next week's episode because I would have a whole different feeling about what we just watched.
It was. I agree with that 100%. Yeah. So basically, the two main things that really technically three if you really want to, but the two main things you take away from this episode is Stassi misses Frank, Jax gets a tattoo, and then of course Shorts wants to work at Sir, and then Sheena fucking makes Stassi's entire life, she feels like she's copycatting her, which I can't blame her in some aspects, and we'll dive a little bit in that in a minute. This episode was filled with some pretty good one-liners, though. I will say that. When your episode kicks off with Stassi having a lunch with a friend who says masturbate over being with Jax, I want to know how many friends
and apparently a friend that works at the restaurant.
Yeah, I'm not sure I've ever saw.
Which we've never seen before. Yeah.
I want to know how many friends who have dated the girls that have dated Jax said instead of going back, do that instead. I'm sure there's quite a bit, right? I also didn't really take from the first episode that we were still kind of so emotionally invested in Frank. I didn't realize that we were like in love with Frank and like we are team Frank, the friends team Frank.
Let's not use the word we.
Well, I mean, I just find it interesting. I mean, first off, her friend tells her to go to DC and just stalk him. They haven't talked since he left.
Also, can we bring... I don't remember them ever mentioning that he went to DC for something.
Right, exactly. I don't understand.
What is he doing in Washington, DC?
Right.
Bartending badly?
Right.
Working on Capitol Hill? Does this explain some of the...
Did he become a politician?
For the Defense Department?
Right, exactly. There's so many things that, like, happen in this lunch or this dinner, whatever it was, the lunch with a friend, that we have, like, is all new information to us.
I feel like they're trying to keep the Frank candle alive on the show because it creates tension. But,
Jax doesn't need help.
well, he hasn't appeared, and if you move to DC, it's okay. But the last time we actually physically saw them together on screen, it really was the episode where he seemed to decide he was over all of it. I thought he made an ass of himself in front of her parents,
Yeah.
although now her dad seems to think that was great behavior, which might suggest a lot of
Hey, look,
the inborn problems Stassi has
the guy brought
may
a
have been
Western
given
bottle of
honestly.
liquor too,
Yeah.
you know?
And then he basically flew off the handle with her and called her dumb and then left. And that was literally the last time we've seen him in the show. But every few episodes, she pops up and talks about what a charmer he is.
Yeah.
Evidence not provided, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, I mean, they had this whole entire dating thing, obviously, during the off season, I guess, of shooting the show, and, um, the other thing that so my thing is this: I'm not I'm not gonna defend Jax Taylor, right? But I'm also going to say that what Stassi is doing to Jax is not very nice. She
Mhm.
knows that Jax is madly in love with this woman, with her. So, instead of being like, "Hey, we're gonna cut this off forever," she kinda sleeps with him again, and then she kinda gives him rules. She gives him 3 rules: get an apartment, get rid of the tribal tattoo, and get a new job. If you're giving somebody those 3 rules, that means you're still thinking that there's an inkling of chance of this person's going to, "Hey, we might get back together." I mean, and again, not defending Jax here, but this man seems to, want to get in the right direction. Also, I do wanna ask a question here. Would you rather have a sleeve full of penises on your tattooed on you, or would you like a big tattoo of Frank's face on you? That was quite an interesting question to ask as well.
Yeah.
He's getting a tattoo by the way, he got a tattoo on his left side to cover the tribal to fix it or
I
whatever.
mean, if he had the sleeve of penises, that would be an interesting.
I mean,
Instead, he got what like it looked like they were turning it into a tropical fish or something.
yes.
It's hard to tell. They don't really
Y
show
you
you
don't
that because they're more concerned with the name that he got tattooed on the underside, which I understand.
so he gets on his I'm sorry, he made a point to bring up that he got on his left side close to his heart.
Mhm.
Um, can we talk about the tattoo? The tattoo is not that great, and it's very hard to read Stassi.
Yeah, he did it in like a scripted font. He said the S was really important. Maybe it means more to her.
I don't know, but, maybe it just meant that if he ever needed to get cover up, it'd be easy to do it. Because that was not the greatest, like, writing I've ever seen in
That is
my entire
true.
life.
I wonder if he still has it.
Yeah, well, I wonder if we'll find out if how we got it covered up or anything like that. Um, obviously, Sheena, like, broke her leg or whatever, not literally, we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but we're talking about Stassi and Jax here, we're gonna
She
kinda
has
go
like a bruised foot, right?
yeah, yeah, very much. Um, we're just breaking these down by parts of the show here, and this is the
Well,
Stassi and Jax corner here. But
Lisa is learning a lot of words. Last week
yes.
she learned ranch.
Mhm.
This week she learned what a hematoma is.
Yes. Um, I found this hilarious. Obviously, so the battle of this episode is, Stassi, Sheena, Stassi type of situation. But so Sheena was working the front desk basically of the restaurant here, or the whatever you want to call it. So she was seating people. She knew that Stassi had to leave early and was just seating literally everybody that walked into the restaurant in her area. And it made me die laughing. Um,
Well, but Stassi had been kind of
oh yeah.
bitchy to her, and honestly, we we know that Sheena is friends with, I can't remember the daughter's name. It's something
Pandora.
Yeah, I knew it was something ponderous. Um, it would make sense that Pandora asked her to write for the magazine because we've seen several episodes over 2 years where they talk about Stassi not really doing the job. Finding
Mhm.
out she's not getting paid for it makes it a little more clear why she isn't prioritizing it
Yes.
over like a paid position. And Lisa definitely asked her to work up at the front because her foot was jacked up and because they still needed somebody to be in the restaurant and she couldn't be a server. I also, you know, I don't think Sheena's wrong in saying I'm crippled. I can't come outside. I'm working a post because she's supposed to be up there to answer. Well, you're just sitting here. Well, that's what it is because you're waiting for people to come in and you're waiting for phone calls. They don't always come every second of the day. But if you leave and somebody comes, you're at work. Like
Exactly.
you've got to plan. If you want to tee off on somebody, you got to
Probably don't
plan
do it at
better.
work.
Yeah,
Probably
first of
don't.
all, don't do it at work. And second of all, you got to. So she got bent out of shape that Sheena was ducking her. No, she was actually, I mean, sorry, rarely do people on the show I know actually commit to doing their jobs. But
Yes.
I'm not upset about that. There was only one thing Sheena did in this episode that I thought was vindictive.
Yeah, and yes, and so obviously we'll talk about the final date between Stassi and Jax towards the end of this episode now, but we'll switch over to Shorts working at Sir. Obviously, we talked a little bit already about Sheena started working with Pandora here, but so Shorts said that he and Kitty they're talking about marriage, and she said that he needs to get a stable job, and that's Sir for sure to get
Well, I wonder
confident.
what he does, don't you? Like
Well, he says that he works for high end celebrities.
that he
Uh,
bartends
Yes, he
places.
bartends for high-end celebrities. Um,
Let's define high end.
well, I would love to know which high-ends he's talking about. Lisa meets with Tom. This meeting was hilarious. I thought that their back and forth banter. I don't know. This was like the first time we really saw some like strong personality from Shorts.
I know,
Um,
but I was a little creeped out. He went over the top with the "she's my hall pass" now.
oh well, yeah. I mean,
That was
obviously.
that was a lot.
Um, she talked I did think that she was what she did say when her line of "You sleep with questionable company," I died laughing at that comment. Lisa's being self-aware and comedic is pretty funny. I think
I thought she liked Katie.
I
Why is
thought
why is Katie taking all the strays this episode? Katie's taking strays from everybody. All she actually does usually when we're watching seem like she's working.
working. Yeah. Kate, yeah, she was taking some strays. After the meeting, Tom Schwartz did say, as you mentioned, that him and Katie have hall passes, and now Lisa is in his top three. Um, let's see here. Oh, so now this was this made me mad.
Like
And
it's
I do
just
think
Schwartz had watched Psycho recently as some life coaching, and he's like, he's looking for that mother figure in his life.
Sheena comes to talk to Lisa. They're getting ready to talk about this little party that's going on, and then she does do something that I was very upset about. This was honestly one of the first. I agree with you. I think this might be the vindictive comment you made
Yeah.
is not getting Shorts hired because of the whole drama that happened at our birthday party, which Shorts did nothing wrong.
Well, I didn't perceive that he started it. I mean, they were definitely going back and forth, but it didn't seem like he started it, and they got tossed out and they left. It's not like some of the blowups we've seen, but going out of her way to bring that up, even Lisa's daughter looked a little perturbed that she said that.
Yeah, yeah. So then Lisa obviously makes the decision that she's not going to hire him. Pandora brings Sheena in to write for them, and Stassi is mad. Two comments here from Stassi I found hilarious. Sheena is an ass sucker, and then I don't have a shadow anymore. I have a Sheena. Um, Not a fan of Stassi. Hilarious one-liners from time to time.
Yeah, again, I think the only like truly below board thing that we saw her do was tanking Schwartz, and if he would have been pissed off or Katie being pissed off, I get it.
Yeah,
Other people just feel a little too self-absorbed and think everything that happens is an affront or an attack on them.
yeah,
We've probably each worked with people like that.
absolutely. Of course, Lisa told Katie about Shorts. She got pissed at that because of the whole,
And that was
Shorts didn't do
justified.
shit. Yes. Um, let's see here.
That's why I thought the wrong person wanted to have a meet me in the back alley conversation with Sheena.
Absolutely, totally agree. Yeah, Katie, which was weird. I
But
thought that
she's
was
too nice, which is why I don't understand why she keeps taking strays. And she had the best quote of the episode. Also, don't understand why she keeps taking strays.
yeah, it's crazy to me. All right, let's talk about Tom Sandoval. Um, Tom Sandoval versus the coffee table. Um, I did love where Kristen said he thinks he can fix a coffee table and think that I forgot about him cheating with a nasty girl. I thought that line was hilarious. Kristen has got some great one-liners. I still stand by my comment that it looks like Kristen is in fact forgiving him because they're still living together. They're still together right now. So I'm still team Tom Sandoval, and I'm even more so team Tom Sandoval based on the fact that he struggled mightily with this coffee table, and it was hilarious.
I, you know what's frustrating to me about the whole Kristen thing is, yes, she, still living with him. Seems like they're still on the same page, but she's very cold to him and
Mhm.
very angry with him. And, like either choose that you want to move forward or get out of it. No one would blame you if you wanted to get out of it, but the going halfway and then not that there's not justification for being a little bitchy to him. It just like you can tell they're gonna come apart. Would it have been better to just end it, right there? I don't know. Because that's the you're right. Her actions say one thing, but her demeanor, the look on her face, her comments say something completely different. However, I will say the table thing was endearing, and I identify with that a lot. That not being able to put together complex Swedish furniture and having to have your girlfriend or your wife come over the top and do it and tell you to basically get the F out of the way. It perfectly encapsulates my own personal relationship. I am no longer allowed to attempt to build things. I do the dishes, I do the laundry. Lindsay builds everything. In fact, I ordered myself a new bookshelf that someday will be atop the turret with me. That will have cool things like you have in your background. And my wife, I'm just waiting for her to feel up to building it because I know I'm not supposed to, and we don't do it together anymore because that would be a relationship killer. Which I think Kristen says, we can't just get out of my way and let me do this, and then I felt seen.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. You know what I mean? Sometimes those directions don't
We all
fucking
have
direction.
different gifts.
Those directions don't direction sometimes. Though. Let's be real. I mean, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're in English, but they don't speak English, or read read English. Um,
I just sometimes I feel like I think he said, I think they put the wrong screws in there. I feel that all the time,
oh
man.
my god, dude! Again, let's talk about Tom Sandoval, the most relatable character on the show. All right, outside of the
Except
cheating
for
part.
the cheating. Yeah, let's not leave that hanging out in the world in case
I don't need that back in my life.
Mrs.
Um,
Ricky listens.
exactly. All right. One thing I did think that is funny in the dynamic here. Apparently, Kristen loves to compare Tom to Jax, which is so interesting to me. And he said, "What do I have to do now? Get Kristen's name on my arm?"
I know, but why are we comparing him to
I guess because the cheating.
Jax?
I guess maybe. But I thought
Well, I did
he
say
said
he
it
was
in a
going
good.
on the Jax life plan,
Yeah,
but
but I thought it was like I thought it was more endearing the way that he said it, but maybe it
Well,
was
I
in
mean,
the
flash forward, what is it, 13 years later, and she's still friends with Jax, still rooting for Jax. So,
yeah. All of the episode comes together towards the end here for the big infamous, hang on, date, non-date between Stassi and Jax Taylor. I do think that um, we had probably maybe the greatest quote, um, keep your legs close and mind on Jesus. Um,
yeah.
that was top shelf moment. Um, she wants, and of course, she wants to see again. Here we go. Talk about the tattoo, but just because you have a studio apartment, a tattoo cover up doesn't make up for your cheating. I agree with that. However, but if you're telling this man that these are the things that he needs to do, and he's doing these things, what's going on? Um, and again, I said Stassi's leading this man on. Period. Sorry, not sorry. Um,
But it
yeah.
seemed like they. So that was the frustration. We've gone this back and forth like it feels like a million times now, even though we've only had like 10 actual episodes of show. Because I think the first season had 8 actual episodes, and then a reunion, and then a behind the scenes, and now we have 2. So that's what episode 10. I feel like we're in Groundhog Day, but not a good Groundhog Day. It's like the 5th time they've had the same discussion in an episode, but it felt like it was, at least finally ending. It was real grim. The car ride home, sending her on her way, and I was like, okay, well that wasn't fun, but at least now it's over. And then they tag that next time on
Yeah, and
Vanderpump Rules, and I
the
wanted to
synopsis for the
punch
next
through my TV.
the synopsis for the next episode: Stassi rekindles her romance with Jax when Sir Staff heads to her mom's house in Lake Arrowhead.
Like, no. And this, she gets upset that he constantly has,
Hope.
that he won't, that he keeps coming around
Why does he keep coming around?
because you guys keep hooking up. Because you tell
Exactly.
him it's over, you have no interest in him, and then the next, like, literally the coming on, and we'll have to see it in context, but there was an aside clip about her talking about marriage, and I'm like, dude.
Now that could be spliced together to be talking about Frank again. We don't know, so we're not going to make assumptions. But obviously, this episode ended with Jax having such an emotional roller coaster. He said the thought of Stassi wanting to get back with Frank makes him want to drive a truck into a pole, which, you know, I mean,
I still, part of me does wonder if they're just keeping like Frank in the mentions to, um,
it makes no sense.
well, because I mean, we haven't seen him, and the last time we saw him was Grimm, but everybody talks about him like Saint Frank, and I don't get nothing we saw on any of the episodes seems to match the verbal bouquets being tossed this way.
Well, and I think the other thing is obviously they talked about how they had this kind of relationship post show when they aired it, and we didn't get any more volume behind that either. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
and then again, where the fuck is he at? He's somewhere in Washington D.C. So I don't know. Interesting episode.
he
Who
works for
was
the CIA.
your MVP?
Katie. I find it disrespectful that she caught so many strays. She looked like she was doing her job. She had every right to just flip out on a coworker and basically ignored that. Had some sage advice for Stassi. Um, seems to be now we know long term it's not going to work out because we've seen a show that takes place 13. But of the people on the show, seems to have the most stable relationship, which is not a high bar, but you know,
Yeah. No, for sure. I felt like I was gonna go Katie, but I felt like you were gonna go Katie. So I went shorts this episode just because this was kind of the first time we kind of really saw this personality out of him. and I couldn't
If you
resist
talk
that.
about like Lisa in those ways, it's hard for me to go MVP there. That
Look, I
was
wasn't mad at it. You know what I mean? Hey, man, my guy likes what he likes. All right, Matt.
that was sincerely
Jeez,
over the top.
it was. I agree with that comment. All right, we're gonna transition over to our other Vanderpump show. Let's talk about Vanderpump Villa. All right, season 2, episode 2, Vanderpump Villa is here. We have quite an interesting episode, I guess. As we're doing kind of new-ish, we're gonna kind of be breaking down things to uh, per episode. You know what I mean? Some of the highlights, some of the bigger moments of the episode. This week's episode had a little bit of romance. We had some fighting. And then, of course, we have a new group of people from the Olympics coming in, which was like part Olympics, part interest.
I mean, they were really focused on the two people. I don't watch the challenge, but I assume you know who they are.
Yes, yeah. They were very much more focused on those characters here, but um, the way things open, obviously, well, obviously it opened with Bridget getting shit canned, which kind of was touches on things. Um, I wasn't surprised. Marciano does open the show with a banger of a quote. She was very good looking, but one less person between him and $30,000. I love Marciano, but I don't think he's got a chance in hell at that $30,000. But I digress. But yeah, Sadai, and Sienna.
Ciotti and Sienna.
Siade.
Yeah,
There you go.
Ciotti.
One of us will bury the names, one of us won't. Um,
It was interesting to learn that they were either had hooked up or were in a relationship before they mutually got cast on the show. So that maybe explains, because it seemed like, oh, hey, I've just met this person. Let's be roommates. And I
yeah,
was
so
like, that was weird in the first one. And here, at least, they provide a little bit of context. It sounds like she got him the job.
right, yeah, I was kind of surprised by that too because obviously we get a fight between, or not a fight, but Grace. He does, in fact, kind of say that it was kind of whatever. You know what I mean? They only had sex because of a drunk love song or whatever. Um, and then Grace told Sadai,
Ciotti is
Siati,
how it sounds like they're pronounced. Ciotti
Siati,
and Sienna, even though
Siati about it, and all hell broke loose. And then Siati blames Grace more or less, or so she told Sienna about it, and Siati blames more or less blames Grace for what happened. Which
I ask
this,
a technical question. So Ciotti, it feels like he's in a. So they obviously got rid of the role of manager
right?
and whatever like host events kind of thing that Steven was doing. It seems like they merged those two ideas together into whatever role. It was nebulous when they're first announcing themselves and you're seeing what they are, like the guest services, but I'm guessing based on it seems like he's coordinating some of these events for Lisa and he's filling gaps, like because he was serving at one point, which is something Eric had done as the manager, would step in
Yeah,
and do serving, and it seems like he's the one that presents the comment card. So like they make a comment about, it feels like he thinks he's the manager, he's bossing around, but it feels like he got put into a hybrid of those two positions where Eric and Steven were bossing people around.
yeah, exactly. I mean, that was Steven's job. You know what I mean? Steven's job was to be the bossy person, whatever it was, and then
Feels
not
like
Steven,
he's
Eric.
manager
I mean, yeah,
without the title.
yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? And we've all dealt with that before. I feel bad for the guy. Um, so again, as we said, we referred to the conversation of Lisa. Sienna referred Ciati, whatever, to Lisa. She picked them. Obviously, these two are smitten by one another. It was definitely more context to the relationship and understanding that there's a little bit more depth. I still don't believe this guy as far as I can throw him, because he was talking out of both sides of his mouth to both of these ladies. You know what I mean? So it's definitely interesting to see that.
Yeah.
Um, All right, let's talk about the guests coming in. The Olympic crew, we knew about those. I already forgot. Like for some reason, I didn't write down the guys from the challenge's name. I forgot his name. Um,
Oh, I don't really. Here, I'll have to look them up. You know what? Part of it is. Can I ask a question? It feels like there's a lack of pop all the way around.
mhm.
Uh, like
Paulie, there it is. Paulie.
even that relationship hookup. I guess it was supposed to be.
Yeah, it didn't feel like it didn't feel like I don't know. I remember the first season, right? And you can correct me if I'm wrong. It was about the drama, but there was also a level of like care that went into the presentation of what was going on.
Yeah, and they talked about the guests, and the guests were usually there for some kind of uh, purpose that made them.
Right.
I don't know
And
that.
even if you would have had the Olympic people there, that was still a purpose, like coming off the
Well,
Olympics, like this.
we never really, they never talked to the people from the Olympics. I kind of forgot which Olympic athletes they even had. She goes over it real quick, but it was really about the two people from the challenge,
Yeah,
like the.
Paulie and his old girlfriend, and then of course Aiden, um, came in or whatever. Yeah, that whole dynamic was weird. And then
It's
of
like
course,
they're trying to find ways to inject drama that isn't really there. I don't
yeah,
know.
and then season one felt more natural. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
and to me, and I agree with that. I agree with that. I was because to me, and this is me just speaking out loud, I feel like the two stars of this show, and I think Andre also has a play in the part, obviously are Hannah and Marciano. And their drama, even if it's whenever their drama happens, it at least feels interesting. And I think maybe it's because we have a connection to them being on season one. You know what I mean? I think
Mhm.
that plays a part of it. That's the difference. Like when you watch a Vanderpump Rules, like these Vanderpump were air people that you're bringing in, you're seeing the same people from season one to season two, right? This is bringing in new people to mix with some of these older people. And I don't think it's meshing very well. And I don't think any of these people are even as remotely interesting. Like even the Bridget situation with Anthony, I think getting rid of her was probably the right decision. But at least in the first episode, she's probably the one person that I felt like brought some sort of real drama to the table that really would have been interesting to watch. Her and Marciano playing off a little bit more with Hannah being pissed. I would have enjoyed that a lot more than watching the S crew that I'm not even going to continue to butcher the names and being together or not together, whatever they're doing. And then the whole Aiden thing was weird. The thing about it is the only realistic part of Aiden was he didn't really work and everybody was pissed about it.
Although, I mean, Hannah came in on her off time and tried to take over things, and that made it worse.
Right. Exactly.
I I don't think Marciano's a champ of a guy, but he got thrown under the bus there because she tried to come over the top, and it did not make sense.
No, and then starts and like kind of bickers at him. And
And
I don't
he
even know
tried to
why.
be very,
Right.
he refused to engage twice
And still
when
got
she
yelled
was
at.
dressing him down by the pool. And then he's like, okay, sorry, thanks, and takes off, and then out when they're doing food. And it could be the way they're shooting it, maybe because they were there more, but Lisa and Stassi would have heard more because it was by their table. But the way they shot it, he's Katie level taking strays right now.
Yeah, it made no sense because again, to me, when you watch it, you're right. Like to me, like that to me, the growth from Marciano in season one to season two is something that I'm actually enjoying with his character because season one, dude would have flipped his shit. He would have fucking yelled. He would have fucking all of these things. And I genuinely felt like he's trying to get into this second season and be a variation. And who knows? It could be a show, maybe, but it doesn't matter. From what we're seeing so far, the difference from season one to season two and Marciano is vastly different. You know what I mean? It's a different guy. It's a different person. He's actually like going kind of almost above and beyond. He didn't go above and beyond much in season one outside of like flirting with people or trying to get in Hannah's pants. Like that was like his goal of season one. But it to me, it's a little bit different. I
Well, she's
yeah,
not interested now because he's a DJ.
yes, very much. Oh man, that's so fucking good. Let's see here. There's not a lot of things happen. I don't think that
Well,
I really care to.
and we get the comment card at the end, and obviously they were impressed with Ciotti, and he is a front person. This was another, he was also taking strays. I actually thought it was classy since she said he could invite 3 people, that he tried to take someone aside and make the offering rather than coming out in like a big group and just saying, "Hey, I won this. I get to take a few people out on the town. I'm going to take you and you. See ya for the
Yeah,
rest." I thought that was a classy move, and they basically are throwing him under the bus and talking about how he thinks he's better than them. He was trying to be, I mean, very, maybe they aren't used to seeing it because no one on these shows ever thinks to be respectful, but I actually perceive that as pretty respectful.
yeah, I agree with you 100% here. I thought that he was catching strays for no reason. He respectfully did it. I love that he brought Chef with him.
Yeah.
I felt like that to me was something that showed his character. He brought two people that he gets along with, right? You know what I mean? The two people that he gets along with, but then
Who
brought
he
somebody.
thought also did a good job. He
Exactly.
told him, thanks so much and Chef Anthony had to pick up a lot of pieces and obviously was feeling pretty stressed out back there.
Yeah, exactly. And he's got each week now he's this is his first real cooking environment with one less person in the kitchen too. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Without a sous chef, somebody that's supposed to be his sous chef is not now in the kitchen with him. So there's a lot more going on for him there too as well. I didn't love and I didn't care that Aiden was crying because everybody was making like picking on him because poor Aiden because he didn't do shit. Everybody was mad about it, so they fucking kind of threw his ass under the bus, and now he starts crying about it.
Well, and his whole storyline there was weird. Um,
Yeah. Weird, flirtatious with Paulie, crop top daddies. I could care less. Honestly, I could have cared less.
well,
Um,
and so it is confusing to me. They must be on this shift system or whatever. And it's like they were mad at him because he didn't come back on shift after he had worked early and was off
mhm.
because Hannah did. Nobody asked her to, and she made shit worse coming back on
She did,
shift.
dude.
So I don't. It was a little bit weird, but at the same time, he's kind of isolated himself from the group and done some weird stuff.
Yeah.
It's just really unclear. And the shift thing, we don't understand what they're doing in terms of talking about shifts.
No, because we never even heard about that in the first season.
Well, I don't didn't perceive them to have shifts in the
No.
first season, but now I'm wondering if that's why they brought on more people. Because if
Yeah.
we talked about there being a significant uptick in the number of people, did they do that so that they could have flights? Like now, it seems like there's like 6 or 7 people that are tagged as server. Did they do that so they can have like 3 on a first half, like a handshake in the middle, and 3 on, which would make sense because if you're trying to do cover like breakfast, lunch, dinner stuff, that's going to be more than an 8 to 10 hour day, and
Yeah.
you can't have people working 16 hours a day for weeks on end. That's probably a lot.
I would agree. All right. Who do you got for MVP of the show?
I mean, that's rough.
I got
Uh,
Marciano. Only because of how he tried to diffuse the situation with Hannah. You could go, I think you could go Ciotti here. I think you could go.
I'm gonna go with Lisa because we have not honestly seen her. She said in the pilot, "I'm not gonna I'm not going to put up with what I put up with last season or what we've seen her put up with so far through 2 seasons, which, at some point you are running a business. And if this is a glamorous boutique business, we think they're like, it's got to be a couple $100K a weekend. So she got rid of, is it Caroline? I forgot her name. Yeah,
Bridget.
Bridget. Sorry, Caroline was first season. Got rid of Bridget because she clearly oversold her skills and that she doesn't
Yeah.
have. And then, even though I think Marciano unfairly got pulled into some of this because all that was people seeing the two of them fighting, even though he's not the one that was fighting. You guys have one strike. I can't have this. I'm not doing what I did last year. Laying down the law. And there hasn't been a lot of, this is a job and I need you to act professional in some of these seasons.
Yeah, and it's a little bit obviously it's aptly different because Vanderpump Rules is at a day-to-day restaurant. Who knows what they're, half the time it looks like they're just working shifts where there's like nobody there. Maybe they're working during the lunch hours so they can film a little bit more. But this one actually feels like somewhere they have to consistently work in order to get some sort of dynamic where you're watching them kind of do that. So, all right, that's it. Let's go ahead and transition to the reality TV corner. All right, many different shows popped off in the last few weeks. Obviously, we're watching The Valley. I'm watching 24 and 24, Last Chef Standing. Yes, Chef. I'll just do a quick recap. 24 and 24. If you're not watching that show, it's on Food Network. Drops on the next following day or that night, I think even. Fantastic cooking show. Huge fan of it. Um, it's definitely an interesting show. Yes, Chef, show with, Martha Stewart co-hosting. I love the dynamic there, I like how they do the eliminations, kind of enjoyed that pilot. Battle Camp was fantastic. You got anything to add outside of The Valley?
Um, I'm really enjoying The Rehearsal on HBO. This second season, Nathan Fielder, it is, I mean, he talks about it. It is a comedy show, but he has a very different approach. And this season, what he's been interested in exploring is the role that the interpersonal dynamics in a cockpit between a pilot and a co-pilot might have in aviation issues, which sounds pretty serious. And it's a serious idea, but the way sometimes he's going about the second episode in particular, Nathan Fielder used to be a talent scout for Canadian Idol, and he talked about the roughest part, that he dreaded every day waking up knowing that he was going to have to, let break somebody's heart or and their dreams. So what he's been exploring is the difficulty that sometimes co-pilots have in having an awkward conversation with the pilot in case, having an awkward conversation or disappointing somebody. So he had all these co-pilots for actual airlines were seeing contestants, and no matter what had to tell them they weren't going to advance, and then they were getting graded by the contestants on how they handle it. It was a fascinating idea, but then they brought in these set of pilots, and the most hilarious exchange ever. There's a pilot in there who's talking to the co-pilot who had gotten the highest grades, and they're Nathan Fielder's doing a one-on-one, and he's talking about, oh yeah, the dynamic's hard. You got to watch what you say because I just never know I'm on stable ground because I've experienced this a lot in my personal life. He's like, well, what do you mean? Turns out this guy has been banned from 5 different dating apps and kicked off Instagram due to complaints from other people about behavior and comments. And he basically tells Nathan that he actually used his mom's email address to try to get back on one of them. They had an algorithm to find the device and they booted him again. But he doesn't really understand why he's being persecuted. And Nathan Fielder's like aside is, so this is part of the problem. Here we have somebody who's been kicked off of all of these and doesn't understand why. And how do I explain to him? And I was just, I mean, It was one of the funniest things, like lack of self-awareness that I have ever seen.
I have to watch this show. I've heard so many good things about it, and something that I really need to sink my teeth into. I haven't watched any of it actually. I've just heard season one and then transition to season two. I heard it's fantastic. It's something I really need to watch. Give me some thoughts on the Valley this week, outside of everybody on the show you love. I know that's just something fact.
Um, I too would be an adult that would be interested in going to Dave and Buster's for my birthday. I felt bad for is it Janet?
Hmm.
Just wants to go have a cool time and a nice hang. And I liked her asides. Everybody so somber and serious. I loved her husband saying he's never been more happy to have an Android phone, so he can't be in the chat that's ended everyone's
Yeah.
lives. I'll go hang out at Dave and Buster's with those two. The rest of them can pound sand.
Yeah, I will have to say this. Not a huge fan of Janet, never have been really, but her breakdown of the three-step process to Dave and Buster's, or the success. One, you dress for success. Two, you scope out the prize and you set your sights on the goal for the evening. Problem is, between Janet and I'm just going to be honest, I can't afford to stay in Dave and Buster's that long to get 25,000 tickets, but I digress. Step three, take a lay of the land and find the high ticket games. I would have watched an entire episode of Janet trying to achieve the goal of getting what she wanted. That to me would have been amazing. I don't know. Look, it would have been pure entertainment. It would have been pure entertainment just watching everybody else play these games too, because Dave and Buster's is not and is not a high-end place that you would expect to see these valley quote unquote people slumming it up at. You know what I mean? To me, that was like the most real thing that we've seen in 2 seasons from these people. And I wish that we would have got more of it because it would have been fun. I think it would have shared their characters in a different light. And I understand it's all about the drama and all this other good stuff. But to me, that entire thing was pretty awesome. Um, do you think I don't think anybody's gonna ever talk to Luke again. Nobody's ever gonna tell Luke anything in their stories or anything like that, which they should have understand. Who is he dating? Kristen. Who is the biggest mouth of this entire group? I blame Luke for what he said. However, I knew that the moment that he said something to Kristen, it was a wrap.
I mean, it was just too. He was too quick to just volunteer all these
But that's
information.
the difference is, and obviously had not seen season one. Luke comes from the Middle East, Middle East, Middle West, where he was just living living by himself. You know what I mean? Living on a farm basically, and somehow him and Kristen met. So like he doesn't really fit into the group very well here. And I think for his sake, I think he's just trying to be the good guy in most aspects. And we've seen a lot of that in the first season. I just don't know how I don't think he knew how to respond and have this much information. And he didn't want to get in quote unquote, I think trouble, I guess the word could aptly be. But yeah, I don't know. And I do think now listen, I fucking hate Jesse with a passion and just want to throw him across the room so many different times. But his ability to say on the quick that he was just trying to figure out who the mole was in the group chat, so that's the reason why he did it, was pretty brilliant. Now, apparently there has been conversation that they thought there was a mole. This is the first we've heard of it, and this is the first we've heard about the guys chat really too. But and honestly, at the end of the day, it's Danny's fault. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no one seems like winner. Like if we were doing it, we'd have to pick an LVP because there are no winners here.
Janet's my
As
winner.
as Nick Bukai used to say, there are no winners here.
Janet's forever my winner for the Dave and Buster situation.
Well, she probably won the most prizes because she was taking the games pretty seriously. She probably regrets that she invited anyone else. She would have just liked to go play games with her husband for an hour. That probably would have been more edifying. Um, it was pretty funny to see some of these people who apparently don't even know what a Dave and Buster's is.
100%.
That was
Because didn't somebody say something about it? Like they thought that they like had the place reserved or something, and then I guess they didn't realize that they had to go out there with actual like real people, almost. You know what I mean?
yeah, or um, was it one of them thought it was a nightclub?
Yes, 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 yes.
That's top shelf.
Yeah, it was the entire thing was fantastic. There, the whole like I said, I would have done an entire episode of Dave and Buster's and would have been so wholeheartedly for it. So, um, yeah,
If we could get rid of the people with their unnecessary crying and vindictiveness, that would have been okay.
I do agree that it would be awesome to get rid of Jesse. All right. That said, anything else to add reality TV wise? Actually, I think there's a few things coming out this soon. Do you have anything to add before um we carry on?
No, if you want to check out the rehearsal, it airs on Sundays right after Righteous Gemstones, a show that I know you and I both enjoy. That is airing its final episode tonight.
It's such a good one too. Let's see here. This is the week of May 4th, right? Yep, sure is. We've
Yep.
got Full Speed NASCAR show that's dropping on Netflix on Wednesday. Bum. Let's see here. Cutthroat Kitchen's coming back next week. I actually really like that. Welcome to Wrexham's coming out next week.
I really
Uh,
do like that show. So
The Secret of Mormon Wives season 2 is coming back. I just finished binge watching season 1. Definitely an interesting show. Naked and Afraid comes back on May 18th. Um, Matthew Fox and I are going to go in season whatever of that. Lego Masters is coming out May 19th. We'll probably be talking a little bit about that on the show. Sneaky Links Dating After Dark comes out May 21st on Netflix. I'll be definitely covering that. Yeah, May's got some pretty jam-packed shows. Destination X comes out. But yeah, Jersey Shore Family Vacation. I know Matthew Fox is so excited about that.
I don't think I've ever seen Jersey Shore.
Duck Dynasty, the revival. Oh man, top flight TV coming back, guys. Real Housewives of Miami. Never seen a single. That's what season 7. Might just have to watch the first episode just to see what those ladies are up to. Press Your Luck is coming back. Let's see, Bachelor in Paradise in July. Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? I didn't even know that show was on.
Looks like Conan O'Brien Must Go is coming back.
I don't even know what that is. I skipped over it. I didn't
It's
realize.
a travelogue.
I seen
Uh,
that.
it's kind of like his version of Anthony Bourdain's
Mm.
um, show. Oh, I forgot. So kind of interesting. That Octopus that drops on Prime Video on Thursday is from Phoebe Waller-Bridge. So yes, it's a documentary about a giant octopus, but it's from Phoebe Waller-Bridge. So I imagine that's going to be pretty hilarious.
Walking with Dinosaurs is coming out too. Can't wait for that on PBS. But yeah, so lots of stuff to choose from coming out very, very soon. We'll be breaking down some of that stuff right here on the show. Make sure to check out the loveandrealitypodcast.com. Make sure to check out everything else. Got lots of interviews with Battle Camp up right now. Lots of stuff all over everywhere. Please subscribe, like, comment, all that hocus pocus, turn yourself around. And we'll be back next week.